The phone rings very early, too early. And it's not just any phone, it's the mobile phone of a well-known Central European trader. And the veteran salesman already knows what's coming. A number that doesn't usually show up on the screen. A customer who's gone months without so much as a sign of life. But of course, on the other end of the line, a friendly voice greets you with excessive familiarity. In the fresh produce business, calls like these are the canaries the miners used to carry down into the underground galleries. An early signal that something in the market's air is changing. And the experienced salesman knows how to read it. In this episode, we're going to dig into one of those conversations every sales representative in the sector has lived through at some point. A conversation that hides deep lessons about the strategic classification of customers, about the signals that a market trend is turning, and about that merciless law that we call the inelasticity of supply in the short term. Because when an occasional buyer calls, in a hurry, asking for goods, the real message isn't in his words. It's in the very fact that he's called at all. I'm David Del Pino and this is Fresconomics. Welcome to the fresh produce business, a world where uncertainty is the only constant and volatility shapes every decision. Every day, remarkable people navigate this chaos with skill and courage. Join me as we explore the hidden logic of this industry to decode what others call unpredictable. Let me recreate a scene I've lived through dozens of times, if not more, and one that many of you will surely recognize. The buyer calls very early, straight to the salesman's mobile, because he's already anticipating the change in the trend. "Morning, my friend," says the buyer with an unmistakable accent. He doesn't need to introduce himself, you already know who it is. He's the classic, well-informed operator who's already caught you out twice this year. "Morning, how are you? It's been a while. Where have you been hiding?" you say, and your voice lifting at the end with fake cheeriness. That's the first line of defense. You can already smell the rat, and you've just gracefully reminded him that he's no regular customer, and that you too know the market is turning. "So, what can I do for you?" you ask. "I need a full truck of cucumbers." So much for the pleasantries. The buyer cuts straight to the chase. There is no time to lose. If not you, he'll have to call another supplier and another one fast before some other operator takes the lead. "Look, right now we haven't got any." "What do you mean you haven't got any? You're one of the biggest growers around and you got nothing?" The clock is ticking, but he has to push. You know how it goes. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's worth spending the time deploying every art of persuasion available. "Come on, man. Remember all the great business we've done together in the past," the buyer insists. "Remember that time I helped you out when you were in a tight spot," he insists. And you remember. Oh, you do remember. There were more cucumbers than anyone on earth could want. And you went begging to the whole world. And this fellow took a couple of trucks off your hands. But at what price? And that's the favor he's now leaning on to keep up his little campaign of moral blackmail. "Today it's me who needs it. Don't leave me hanging." "Well, man, if I could, I'll help you out, but today, honestly, there is none," the seller replies. The conversation keeps racketing up and moves fast, no time to lose, until it reaches the lines that are now classics of our trade, stock phrases worthy of being written in letters of gold. "We're out. What do you want me to do? Pull it out of thin air?" Or this other one. "These are not cookie-cutter products. We don't run a nail and screw factory." Or the final one. "The impossible, we do it right away. For miracles, you have to wait a little." Yeah, this everyday scene illustrates one of the golden laws of our business, the inelasticity of supply in the short term. a concept from economic theory, but one that takes on an almost dramatic dimension in fresh produce. Think of elasticity as a material's ability to stretch and then return to its original shape. A rubber band is highly elastic, steel bar, barely at all, right? Well, fresh produce supply is like the steel bar. However hard you pull it, it won't stretch. Why? Because what's planted and ready to harvest is the instantaneous supply of product. However much prices rise, we won't be able to produce anymore. This is a manufacturing process. We can't raise supply in the short term. Among other reasons, because of the constraints of the natural cycle and of growing and harvesting. It's what we mean by these are no cookie cutter products. For example, in a nail and screw factory, if demand rises, you can add shifts, add machinery, produce more. In farming, you can shout, beg, offer fortunes, but the cucumber grows when it grows, and the sun rises when it rises. There is a detail in the conversation that may have slipped past unnoticed. The seller's very first line, that "where have you been hiding?" is no empty courtesy. It's pure strategic information. In the book Fresh Economics, I sort buyers into 5 categories according to their strategic role for the seller. And our protagonist, the occasional buyer who calls when there is a shortage, has a wonderfully descriptive name in this classification. He is the last one to be served customer. The customer who gets served the last is a normal customer falling from grace, whether through our fault or his own. He's lost the sales team's trust, and the relationship is purely tactical. His behavior is speculative. He buys from you today and maybe not tomorrow, but here's the interesting part. There can be a certain instrumental value in keeping him on the books. It tends to make a very good canary in the mine. 19th century miners went down the shafts carrying cages of canaries. These birds are extremely sensitive to toxic gases. If the canary stopped singing or died, the miners knew they had to evacuate at once. The canary didn't dig coal or push wagons, but its value was clear. It gave early warning of danger. Well, the occasional buyer, calling in desperation for products, is exactly that, a canary in the mine of the market. His call is telling you there are unmet needs out there, that other supplies are also short, that prices are about to climb. After enough time in the business, you can, and you should, learn to spot this kind of customer. It's easy, I guess it's easy. Just recall all the times he caught you out with cheap product that a few days later was worth a great deal more. I just mentioned it, the 5 customer categories. But today I'm not going to go into detail on those 5 customer types I cover in the book. But I'll mention them in case you want to take a look. I'll probably do a dedicated episode later, I don't know when, to take on the typologies and how to classify customers. So, as I was saying, customers come in 5 types. First, it would be the commercial partner, or how I also call it, the VIP, the very important partner. After them comes the preferred customer, then the normal or regular customer, and after that, the last to be served customer, today's protagonist. And we finish with a category all on its own, since its role can also be taken by any of the previous 4. The brown wagon customer, the sweeper, like in cycling, the team member who follows the race picking up the stranglers. As I said, for more on this, download the book and read chapter 6, or wait for the dedicated episode about it. What we just described is, in essence, a game strategy. The mathematician John Nash, you'll remember him from the film A Beautiful Mind. So this guy proved that in any game with a finite number of players and strategies, there exists at least one equilibrium. In the fresh market, that equilibrium is reached when every player has found their optimal role, and we can arbitrate that equilibrium across our own network of trading partners. The buyer in our story knows the rules of the game. He knows he's not a preferred customer. He knows his call will probably be in vain. But he also knows the cost of trying is low and the potential payoff is high. It's an asymmetric bet. Little to lose, much to gain. The seller is playing his own hand too. He has to manage not only the physical scarcity of product, but the service expectations of customers across different categories. Serving the occasional customer when supply is short potentially means letting down a preferred one. And that carries long-term costs that far outweigh the immediate gain. But he also has to respect this customer and weigh up whether he has in fact contributed or could yet contribute to the commercial strategy in the near future. That's exactly what the buyer is leaning on. When at that point of the conversation he says, "Hey, remember that time I helped you out when you were in a tight spot?" In anthropology, this is called reciprocity. It's one of the oldest mechanisms of social cohesion. I give you today, you give me tomorrow. It's nothing new. It's been treated in countless studies and in negotiation manuals too. One of the classics is Marcel's mouse, The Gift, in which he showed that the exchange of gifts creates social obligations reaching far beyond the material value of what's exchanged. In fact, in our sector, this reciprocity effect is a tool that we sellers use far more than the buyers. Don't tell them. And as sellers, it's our duty to give first in order to ask for reciprocity later. In this case, the roles has been reversed, which means the buyers understands the momentary asymmetry of the situation. He knows that you know how the market stands. He's not going to play dumb, although he did give it a try at the start of the conversation. We know that genuine reciprocity would mean buying from him and selling to him, depending on your role, when there is no urgent need. Agreeing prices within the fresh market price corridor, that is, market prices that reflect the short-term commercial situation, and of course, keeping the relationship steady. As another saying from the trade's lore goes, yesterday a full ship, today an empty one. You have to be there for the full ship and the empty one alike. Though everything moves so fast and the volatility of this business is so great that yesterday's favors are easily forgotten the moment conditions change. In this game of communication, over the years I've watched plenty of salespeople reach for the white lie, refusing to serve the opportunistic customer with some flimsy excuse, a little white lie in which both parties know one of them is lying diplomatically, but their relationship in that way is saved. Yet it gets harder by the day, thanks to the better market information and technology. How are we going to say, "I swear it's raining," when anyone can check the weather in real time in any corner of the planet? An easily verifiable excuse, one that leaves no room for reasonable doubt, is logically read as a sign of disrespect. Be careful about burning commercial relationships by going down this road. Curiously, technology has also created new canaries in the mine. Internet search patterns, trackable logistics movements, the chatter in the sector's WhatsApp groups, all generate signals the attentive professional can read. And now we come to the point where we condense all of the above into lessons that you can actually apply. Because knowledge that doesn't translate into actions is just entertainment. And sure, I love to make this podcast even more entertaining, but the aim is still to share business insight. So here we go. The first lesson would be classify your customer portfolio before the crisis hit. You can decide who to serve once the phone is already ringing. That decision has to be made in advance. Periodically review who your commercial partners are, your preferred customers, your regular customers, and who your last to be served are. Each category calls for its own differentiated protocol. The second lesson is that unexpected calls are valuable information. When an occasional customer calls in a hurry, he isn't just asking for your product, he's telling you the market is changing. If you got a bad memory like me, log these calls. Note who calls and when. Over time, you'll recognize the patterns that anticipate these market moves. The third lesson, I guess, is that consistency builds credibility. Commercial strategy has to be consistent all the time. The customers who give you stability when there is a glut deserve priority when there is a shortage. But it can also be worth nurturing a certain relationship and some sales with these other less important customers. The fourth lesson is come on, be honest, but smart. There is none today. What do you want me to do? Is a harsh answer, but an honest one. Don't promise what you can't deliver. Credibility is lost only once, and it takes years to win it back. That said, being honest doesn't mean revealing all your strategic information. The full picture is shared only with those strategic commercial partners with whom there is genuine reciprocity and an alignment of goals. And we're reaching to the end. The fifth lesson is understand the physics of the business. The inelasticity of supply in the short term is a law as immutable as gravity. You can't produce more cucumbers by decree, but you can anticipate the scarcity, manage expectations, and give your preferred customers information in advance. And why not? The sixth lesson is cultivate your network of canaries in the mind and build your dashboard of market signals. Keep the channels of communication open with everyone, customers, competitors, and of course, low-value customers. You may not need to serve them when supply is short, and they too may value this relationship for its potential to gather market intelligence, which is to say, we may be the canary in the mine of someone else's mine. And we go into a final reflection. The fresh produce business is enormously volatile. You know that, on both the supply and the demand. Those of us in the sector try to manage the peaks and the lows as best we can. But in certain conditions, the situation turns hyper-competitive, very dangerous. The conversation we've picked apart today is a microcosm of the whole sector. Within it, you'll find the physics of scarcity, the psychology of negotiation, commercial strategy, of course, game theory, the anthropology of exchange, all compressed into a few minutes on the phone. And in the end, when there are no arguments left, when the conversation has reached its limit, all that remains is the raw and varnished truth, expressed with that raw wisdom so typical of our trade. We're out. What do you want me to do? Pull it out of thin air? And by the way, my dear buyer, in case you're listening to this episode, that day, there really was none. I swear, you know how it is. These are not cookie-cutter products. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I invite you to subscribe to Fresconomics on your favorite platform. You can find me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and even on YouTube. And remember to share it with others. Help me connect with the community of professionals in the fresh produce industry. Although it may take a while, I promise to respond to any questions, contributions, or suggestions you may send to web@daviddelpino.com. And of course, you can also visit my blog at daviddelpino.com, where you'll find out how to get a copy of the book Fresconomics, along with articles and additional content. Until next time, take care and try to enjoy this crazy business.